Hello, everyone, and welcome to Blue Balloon Theatre's fifth podcast. This is our Be Inspired podcast series where, you guessed it, it is a chance for you to be inspired by a whole plethora of creatives within the performing arts industry. And today, I am absolutely thrilled to be chatting to Fehmida Master, who I am sure you are going to absolutely adore by the end of this podcast. Hello, Fehmida, how are you?
Hello, how are you? So good to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. I feel like the best place to start, because I know so much about you, but people watching this may not know who you are. So tell us about you. Tell us about what you do.
Okay, so I'm Fehmida. I am an author, writer, poet, and I'm also I've just launched also a publishing house, Master House Publishing, to try and help empower women get their words out into the world, because as we know, publishing, it's a very male-dominated area, and also it's hard for underrepresented writers to break into the industry. So yeah, I've just started that adventure as well.
That's amazing. So tell me a little bit about your journey as a writer, as a poet. Where did that passion come from? Where did you discover that you had a love for it?
In Mrs. Parkinson's class at primary school. I still remember her. God rest her soul. I remember once we had a creative writing session. It was a story, we just had to write a story. And me being me, I don't know if you remember, you're probably too young, but we used to have blank notebooks to write in. It wasn't lined paper, it was just blank. So majority of the class would spend ages lining the pages with a ruler and making sure they've got lines to write on, whereas I was just freehand. I was just writing away, and literally before anybody had even started writing, there's me with like a 3-page story running up to the front of the class to Mrs. Parkinson. And I remember she was so impressed that she made me into an example for the rest of the class, and she stood me up at the front near the blackboard. And she said, right, I want you all to listen to this wonderful story. You know, she didn't have to, for me, didn't have to do any messing about. And she just got on with it, and it was that little boost and confidence that I needed. Her belief in me back then, and I think it was, I can't recall it was if it was the last year in the infants, but that really did ignite something for writing in me. I'd always been a reader. I mean, I've always read since even from my very first words. I've always had books with me, so the reading it's in my blood. But writing happened, and writing started from that particular lesson with Mrs. Parkinson. So ever since then, I've always wrote. I've always done. I used to make little magazines when I was a kid, and started with had diaries, lots of diaries with locks on, proper what back then what little girls would have. And then eventually, throughout the years, it's something that I've always turned to. So when life gets hard inwards, I always try and write so that it's coming out. It's not always manifesting inside of me. So I've always started writing poetry more so after college, when I came across Maya Angelou's work, loved her work. And then I started writing for myself, started writing poetry myself. And throughout the years, even though I was working in a 9 till 5 up until only about 18 months ago, I'd write in my spare time. I would put collections together. Then I started, as you know, I've met up with Blue Balloon. I started, exploring the open mic night scenes that way. And I thought, yeah, I want to do this. And I realised that I've had a substantial amount, a good amount for a collection as well. So yeah, that's how I started on that journey. Sorry, I've just gone on to...
Not at all. That's amazing. So you've touched upon a few things there that I kind of want to discuss with you. So you were working a 9 to 5 job, I presume not creative?
No, it was in an office, very mundane, very stressful, felt very I think like most people do in a lot of 9 to 5s, unless they really are doing what they want to do,
Yeah.
didn't really feel fulfilled, or, you know, sometimes you don't feel appreciated in workplaces. You just think, this isn't for me. I'm not getting much job satisfaction out of this. So because of that, I thought, I need to do something different. However, I have a son, so I needed to make sure that I could pay the bills in order to support him. And so I decided in my head quite some time ago that I'm going to make sure that he gets through school. Gosh, I'm showing my age now. But I thought I'm going to make sure he gets through school, and at some point I will make sure that I'm in a secure position enough to actually take time out for me, not just be mum to him and work and do the 9 to 5 grind and, you know, look after him, but then to take a step back from it and concentrate on my work, my passions. So that's what I ended up doing. I quit my day job and decided to pursue writing as a career full-time in December 2019.
That's amazing. So, I mean, that is such, I feel like it's a turning point. It was a turning point for you in your life where you truly embraced your creativity, and which by the sounds of it has always been there, that passion and love for writing. And I mean, was there anybody that inspired you to take that step? Because that is a very brave move on your part. Was there any particular writers that you had you know, maybe discovered or come into contact with that inspired you to you know, really go for it?
Yeah, well, in 2014, I actually I travelled all the way to Hawaii on a soul searching mission. So it was, I don't know if you're aware, Louise Hay, her works. She was an incredible woman, and she launched Hay House Publishing, and very late on in her life, I think she was in her 50s or 60s when she actually launched that. And as I went off on that journey, I came across so many different authors that were associated with that particular publishing house, because it was all about self-improvement, and about living a fulfilled life. So I came across Anita Morjani's work, I came across Wayne Dyer's work, and it all talked about living your truth, being authentic, being your authentic self. So I think back then, back in 2014, I think I realized that there was more to life, and then I needed to do something else. However, I wasn't in a position back then to take that leap. So I knew what I wanted to do. I visualized it in my head, and I thought, I need to do something. This is what I want to do at some point. And I'd always said I'll get Adam through school, make sure he's okay. I've supported him up until he's independent, more or less. So I think it would have to be the Hay House community, actually. Yeah, definitely. That was a turning point for me, to encourage me to go and live my dreams, to go and chase my dreams, and not stay in this stale walk because it's comfortable. Yeah. We all end up staying in situations because they're comfortable. You know, it's what we know. It's not the unknown. Nobody likes change, and it's secure. But then I thought, you know, I've spent 16 years in that particular role. I thought I definitely need a change. You know, if I don't do it now, then when? So yeah, it was definitely Wayne Dyer and Anita Morjani that definitely sent me off on that path, and Louise Hay.
That's amazing. Oh, what a story. All the way in Hawaii as well.
Hawaii, it was 36 hours of traveling. We ended up on a layover in LA. But I'm so glad I went, because I learned so much about myself and who I was as a person and what I wanted to do. And it just opened up the world. And you realise that there really is so much more than your 9 to 5. And yes, it's, you know, not everybody, and I wasn't back then, you know, we're not able to just up sticks and just change a career. We all have bills to pay, we have kids to feed. But it gave me that fire in my belly to know that there is something more out there for me, so I could take small steps each day, whether it be writing or whether it be saving a few pennies here or there. But at least that way I knew that there was a goal, there was a purpose. I was in touch with my calling more than anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was worth the 30 odd hours there and back. Definitely.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. And what I love about you, Fehmida, is that since I've known you, you've pushed so many boundaries, I think, both within the community that you know and you work in, and for yourself. And I can see that you are becoming comfortable with the uncomfortable, things that, as you say, before to you will have seemed so scary, so out of your comfort zone, and yet now those things are very much a part of your comfort zone because you've pushed that boundary. So I mean, it's really amazing to see this journey of self-discovery through poetry and through Masterhouse Publishing. It's really, really just humbling to see. One of the things that I wanted to talk to you about was, of course, Masterhouse Publishing, because this is a new venture for you. It is your business that you've recently started up. Tell us about it. How did that happen?
Okay, so Masterhouse Publishing, it means so much, and it's so much more than, just publishing books. So I obviously had been writing. I have a collection of poems. I also have a full manuscript of a story to a novel. I had, over the last, I think it was 2019, early 2020, I was talking to and had been offered a publishing agreement for my works by a publishing house. It was an indie publishing house. However, it was a publishing house, they produce fantastic collections, but I didn't feel as valued as a writer, and I didn't feel as though they understood my message. They were wanted to obviously get on board. However, we were obviously going through talks and negotiations, and then there was a lot of upheaval with regards to the Black Lives Matter movement happening. And I noticed that because of that, there were a lot of people almost, and a lot of publishers almost jumping on the bandwagon. And I know that sounds quite, that's quite a bold thing to say. However, I was then approached by a number of different people who had actually originally said, maybe in the future, not so much now. And then I thought, well, okay, but why now then? Is it because you just want to jump on this bandwagon now? Because previously it was a case of, no, we're not too sure. We don't know if it's going to fit. But this one particular publishing house said, I thought, well, okay, they've agreed, and we talked it through. And the more I talked, I just felt censored. It was a case of, even, and my publishing houses they've got every right to have control over what they're putting out and the books they produce. However, also, there's a balance, because these writers and these poets, they're spending time, so many hours of their time and their lives pouring out their emotions into poetry. It deserves to be told in at least some semblance of how they intended it to be told. So when we were in talks, something as simple as the book cover, it was going to have to be a black book cover. Well, why is that? Well, that's what majority of our covers are black. Well, I'm full of life and I'm full of colour, and, I'm really bold and chatty, and, the whole point of me is I've come out of this darkness with a burst of colour. So I don't really want that. Anyway, I thought, okay, it's a really fantastic opportunity. It was a great opportunity back then for me, but it wasn't sitting right with me. It just wasn't sitting right with me. So I then decided, obviously, to look into publishing myself, thinking, well, why is it so elusive to so many people? Why is it that only, the select few, and quite frankly, just a quick Google search will show that predominantly publishing houses are owned by white males, not even that many women, white women even. It's majority is white males. And I just thought, how can a white man understand what me as a brown woman wants and what my voice is, you know? And the more I thought about it, I thought, well, they're not seeing it that way. They're seeing it more of a sales point of view. They just think, is it sellable? Can I sell it? How much money can I possibly make from it? So then the more I looked into it, I thought, do you know what? I can do this myself. You know, actually, I can do this myself. The more I looked into it, the more I read about it, about the publishing industry. And it sort of just went from there, and I ran with it. And I think it was towards the end of last year that I made the decision definitively that this is what I was going to do. And I was going to publish my works my way, my voice, unfiltered, you know, and have my story and have my poems out there the way I intended them to be heard, not diluted down so that it's not as hard to read. Because what's the point? You know, what's the point? There are so many other diluted versions that have been diluted by certain editors and big conglomerate publishing houses. It's all the same narrative almost. I thought, no, I think it's time we change the narrative, you know.
Absolutely.
So why not?
Yeah.
So that's how Master House Publishing started, and I just thought, we need to empower women and people of colour and those that are underrepresented in publishing, and let's get their voices undiluted, unedited, as in unfiltered, should I say, get them out into the world just as they are. Start new narratives, start new conversations. So that's how that started, and yeah, it's just took off really.
That's so good. It is amazing to see how people are responding to everything that you're posting online, to the website, to the online journal where you've got featured poets, myself humbly included. I'm still absolutely thrilled about that.
You are an amazing poet.
Thank you.
No, you are very good. You're better than you realise, honestly.
It's often the case, I feel, with any creative, because there is a lot of we go through processes of writing things, and I think you said last night on your Instagram live that we go through phases of reading our work going, is that good? Like, is that good enough? But it is, because it's true to who you are. If you've written something down, great, because it's your words on a page, and
it's your experience that you've managed to capture.
Yeah,
your experience, no matter what. Two people can look at the sunrise in the morning and see two completely different things. In the same way, your experience is your experience. So you need to get it out there and put it down on a paper, and there is nothing wrong with that. That's your complete truth.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me personally, that's what I've discovered through writing and sharing my work, because I think I'd written a lot before I actually started to share it. So I feel everyone's journey is slightly different, and like you said, everyone will see the world slightly differently. So to be able to share that, I believe, is a blessing. It really is. I wanted to discuss with you your journey from the moment you started to share your work publicly up until Master House, up until now. Like, what was that time? Because it's all happened in a very short space of time, and you've quite literally taken the bull by the horns, and you've gone for it, which is incredible. But obviously you did a spoken word night with us at Blue Balloon. You shared your work. It was incredible to witness. What happened?
I was so nervous that night. I can't tell you how nervous I was that night. I cannot explain.
Honestly, I think I said this to you yesterday, but to have that level of awareness in yourself that you are nervous, but you're also incredibly excited to take that step. It's crucial. I think it just shows that you care about what you're doing, and it's like for actors, if they're not nervous before they go on stage, we always say, well, what's wrong with you? Because if you're nervous, it's good. It shows that you want to make a good impression. I mean, where did it kind of go from there? Like, did you do a lot more open mics? Just what happened in that time?
Well, I first started posting a few bits on Instagram. I think I only really opened an Instagram. Created an Instagram account back at the end of 2017 almost. And that was on a whim. My niece was like, oh yeah, this is what all the cool kids do. I was like, yeah, I'm cool. I can do this. So I sort of just winged it. And I created this Instagram page. And at that point, it was just random thoughts. I didn't really understand the whole concept of putting my work, as in my poetry work, on there. There was a lot of me that was still fearful. I was like, well, that's my work. What if somebody, reads it and takes it? And, you do as an artist, you are very protective of your work, and you think, well, you want to still keep that ownership. But I started posting, but I think it was in 2018, 2019, again, when I thought, okay, this is what I really want to do. I actually want to make a career out of this. I want to write. I want to share what I have to say. Actually, what I have to say is, it's quite relatable. And I only came to that because of the comments I would get on social media. People could relate. And I thought, okay, so that other person's been there. And my DMs were constantly full of incredible women who were just unsure whether what they were feeling was valid, and they would say things like, you've made me feel better, or you've comforted me, and you've made me feel heard and validated. And I thought, there must be so many women out there that are feeling the same thing. So after that, I decided, when I actually quit my day job to pursue this full time, I thought I was going through a lot of personal stuff too. And it was a very difficult time, but my writing kept me afloat. So when I did my first open mic with yourselves, I was going through so much that it wasn't just nerves. My confidence was quite low at that point. I felt very isolated. I had let go of a lot of people, situations. So my support network was quite small at that point. However, the important people were there. But I thought, if I don't do this now for myself, what's the point? I'll never do it. So I started obviously with yourselves. I did a few others. I was at just your circuits in Manchester. I did a few other open nights. I think I did 4 in total, but then lockdown hit, so it all got transferred to online. So I did some open mics online, which was great, but it wasn't the same buzz as doing it live. Yeah. So yeah, that's how I started doing the live events, and trying to understand where the writing journey would fit for me and what would feel right for me, because there are so many different ways you can approach this. You could just write just for yourself by journaling, or write just to post on social media, or you could want to make a career out of it. So that's what it led me to realize, that actually this is where I was the happiest. Writing and reading is where I was happiest. So that's why I carried on that path. Yeah.
That's brilliant. It's so interesting, because like you say, everyone can approach it slightly differently. I know for me, I started writing in 2017, and I didn't actually share any of my poetry, not really, until probably last year. And so it was I don't know really, it probably was a bit of a self-confidence thing. It was a mixture of that and it not feeling like the right time. And then suddenly now I want to share my work a lot more. So you're completely right. It is completely unique to you, your journey of how you approach it. There was something else I was going to ask you, and I've completely forgotten what it was.
It'll come to you. But it was, I think for me, that journey, I realised that if I hadn't have gone through the things I went through, I mean, everything from being in a workplace that wasn't really fulfilling me anymore, you know, because I'd climbed up the ladder, and, you know, you have this vision, don't you? You think, well, once I get to the top, you know, once I've progressed, I'll feel better, it'll be great. But actually, it's still the same, you know, it's actually still the same. It's not fulfilling if it's not something that you're really passionate about, and if it's not really your purpose or your calling, it's never going to feel okay.
Mm-hmm.
So if I hadn't have gone through that process, I wouldn't have really thought about, and I hadn't have gone all the way to Hawaii to try and figure it all out. I wouldn't have made that decision to leave my day job. I wouldn't have then come across the writing community online, come across Blue Balloon Theatre, and the open mic night scene and all the rest of it. And I think all these things, they happen for a reason. I think so often we forget that I'm a believer that the universe will give you signs, whether you believe in God or the universe, it will give you signs. Something will happen and you think, oh, that's something. It'll just light your soul on fire. It will be like, oh, and it's like this light bulb for a quick minute. It's like turning a light bulb on and off. And then once you move away from it, the light bulb's off. But something else will happen, and in that moment you'll feel that light bulb come on again. It's like, oh, okay, that's me. And then all of a sudden you move away from it again and you go off. But I think it's really important that we collect all those little light bulb moments and all those little wisdoms and nuggets of wisdoms, and actually take time to think, well, what is it that makes me light up like that? And then use that to move forward and think, well, how do I use that to light my path going forward? Because there's a lot of little lights everywhere. There's lots of little light bulb moments. I just need to capture all of that light to light my path going forward. Am I making sense? And I think if I hadn't have gone through all of those things to find those little light bulb moments, that I wouldn't be in this situation now. Mm-hmm. So I think it's so important to listen to your inner self when you are in states of discomfort and unhappiness, because it's normally, those are the times when normally God, the universe, is trying to tell us something, to try and tell us that you need a redirection in life. This is now me redirecting you into something else, maybe. Yeah. And it's not always easy. It's not been easy. You know, I can't sit here and say, oh yeah, it's been great, it's been a breeze. No, it's been tough. I've had, you know, imposter syndrome, you know, creeping up. I've doubted myself, and I've thought, oh my goodness, what am I doing? Is this completely crazy? You know, you're completely taking a chance here. But then I think to yourself, well, if life's for living and for taking chances, and if I don't take that chance, I think it was J.K. Rowling who said famously, you know, if you don't do something for fear of failure, then you failed anyway by default, because you've not had a go at it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's incredible the journeys we go through, but it's really even more important to listen to those moments where you feel okay and you feel happy. In those moments, that's where your purpose and your calling lies.
Yeah.
And that's what kept me going throughout, that belief.
That's brilliant. You've unintentionally reminded me of the question I was going to ask, and you kind of touched upon it there. But I was going to ask if you had any advice for writers, poets, especially female writers and poets, whether they're at the beginning of their journey or whether they're somewhere in the middle and maybe lacking a sense of direction. Do you have any advice to those women, anything that may help them in terms of pursuing the idea of getting their work published, for example? Because that to some people can feel like a huge step, one that can bring up loads of questions, and one of them being where would you begin? Because it as you said, there's so many publishing houses that are run by people who may not honour your journey and the way you intend your work to come across. What's your advice?
There are so many. I mean, I don't know if you know, but I don't want to talk about it. However, there's been a story in the news and all over social media this week, back end of last week, where a publishing house has come out and said, they took advantage of the situation with the Black Lives Matter movement, and they jumped on that bandwagon. And they do have questionable ideas, and that aren't inclusive at all, but they didn't they took on board this particular piece of work that was specifically taking on board writers of colour and exploited it to make money off them. You know, it happens. However, it's very, very difficult to navigate that, because as writers, it's this massive thing where if we get a callback or if we get asked for a full manuscript, it's like, wow, it's the holy grail. You know, I've got you know, I've been asked for a full collection submission, and we get so wrapped up in that. And even I have in the past, we get so wrapped up in that we forget that we need to research. We need to look at the company. We need to look at the publishing house. What are their values? What's their ethos? Yes, they might be willing to publish your book, but do their values sit and match yours? You know, what's their purpose? Why do they want to publish your work? Genuinely, why? You know, is it that they're genuinely interested in your story, or do they think that they can make a quick buck out of you because you're trending, whatever it is that you're writing about is trending currently? And I think that's something that I would like to remind people, that when you want to go on and when you think about wanting to publish, really look at who you want to work with, why you want to get published, what's your purpose, and then go for a publishing house that matches your values and your ethos. Definitely don't just get sucked in, like we all have, into this idea that, oh my goodness, I'm going to get published and they want to publish my book. Okay, that's fantastic. However, do you want to publish with them? This is not just about them. This is about you as well. You are important in this conversation as well. You know, it's not just about doing what a publishing house wants or a publisher wants or an editor wants. It's about doing what you want as well. Does it honour your truth? Does it honour what you want to say? So that's the advice I would have for getting published. That's, I think, my biggest advice would be that, is make sure it matches your values, because ultimately, no matter what, we need to make sure that things align. Otherwise, if they don't, with our own inner compass, because if they don't, they're not going to give you, it's not going to be of satisfaction. You're not going to have that same satisfaction holding your book in your hand, knowing that, yeah, it's great, but I wish it was a little bit like this, or I wish it was a little bit like that, or I wish the people I was working with were a bit different. So that's, just make sure that you honour yourself in any agreement. With regards to where to start writing, if you want to start writing, my best thing would say is just sit down and don't think about it, and just write whatever comes in your head. Start journaling, just write it down, whatever it is, whether it's ramblings or just how you're feeling, whether you're angry, you're upset, you're sad and you're happy, doesn't matter, just write it down. Just write something down and then revisit. Write and revisit, write and revisit. That's my piece of advice. Yeah.
Amazing. That is a very good piece of advice. And I completely understand where you're coming from. I think it's something that I've seen in other writers that have had their work published. They've gone to a publishing house simply because they want to publish their book. And if that publishing house, their ethos, their way of working matches yours, fantastic. That's a sure sign that you should go for it. Yeah, it's completely valid point, and it's something for especially people who are completely new to it. It's something to really be aware of, I think. So thank you for that. My final question for you is, who inspires you? I know earlier you touched upon Maya Angelou, and if it hadn't have been for you mentioning And Still I Rise, her book, I would never have read it. I'll be honest, I would never have read it. I wouldn't have gone to the poetry section in Waterstones, seen that book and gone, that's the one for me. And I mean, I know you take inspiration from her, but who else as a poet, as a writer, inspires you?
I think a lot of Khalil Gibran, I think that's how you pronounce it. He's an incredible writer, and it helps because a lot of that, and he was inspired by his faith. So I think I like reading quite a bit of his work as well, just so I feel that spiritual connection. Because I'm a person of faith. I'm a Muslim, and I love how my faith impacts me as well. So I always try and read some of that too. And I always actually go back to my faith and the Quran and all of the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, because a lot of the times the very fundamentals and the way of living that we were taught, it's so real and so valid, and it's poetic. It really is poetic in how we were told to simplify and to live. Excuse me. So I draw a lot of inspiration. Excuse me. So I draw a lot of inspiration from that as well.
Amazing. Don't worry. It happened to me in the last podcast that I did. I couldn't stop coughing.
Yeah, I normally have some water, but I've not bought any today.
That's amazing. For anyone watching, do go and check out those writers. And obviously, I think for me personally, I'm not a very religious person, but I'm completely open to that discussion because a lot of my friends, a lot of the people that I'm very close to are religious. And so I completely respect that. And I can completely understand why you would refer back to that, you know, in moments where even if you just need a little bit of courage and inspiration to write something completely different, you might find something within that you didn't find before. That's why I love rereading poetry books as well.
You find new perspectives, and I think it all depends on the moment you're in that moment, that the wisdom you get from that particular poem. You might read it differently one day because you're in a different space, and then another day you're in a completely different space, so you might interpret it a different way. So it's so important to revisit. Absolutely. I definitely agree with you there. It's key. It's key. And spirituality, I think we all, I mean, I've always, been a spiritual person and a person of faith, but there are times when life takes you and you really start to think, really, you question it, but it's always there as a constant in the background to catch you when you fall. It's always caught me when I've fallen, and it's that hope. It gives you that hope of a better day.
Yeah,
definitely.
Amazing. Oh, that's such a lovely note to end on. It really is. Well, I cannot thank you enough for your time, your energy and your openness. If you would like to mention any of your platforms on social media, Master House Publishing included, now is your moment.
Yeah, okay. So if, firstly, just to communicate and just to connect, you can find me on, obviously, Fehmida_Master on Instagram, and on my website, FehmidaMaster.com. If you've got any writing or publishing queries, or if you just want some support, just want to talk to somebody who might have a little bit more experience, reach out, send me an email, send me a text. We're always there to help. At the end of the day, this isn't just about Master House Publishing. This is about helping you to be the best version of yourself, helping you to discover where you fit, in the publishing world. So just reach out to us. But just find us on masterhousepublishing.com if you need anything else. So thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. It's been lovely chatting to you as usual.
Guys, honestly, it's been an absolute pleasure. If you follow us at Blue Balloon MCR on Instagram, you can even go and check out our Instagram live that we did quite a few months back with Fehmida. But if you enjoyed this podcast, leave a like and a comment down below. Both myself and Fehmida will meet you down there, and subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this. We release new podcasts every fortnight on a Monday, so be there, be square. Or be square, and until the next time, guys, we'll see you very soon, and thank you again, Fehmida.
Thank you very much, Becca.